I just like to start off by saying I think we all owe Trump a deep debt of gratitude. In defiance of the delusions of his base, he went on Truth Social and he spoke the truth. He said Russia's on the verge of collapse. He said Ukraine is going to get all of their country back, including Crimea. And not just that, they're going to invade Russia and take some of the border regions. They're going to rebuild the Kievan Rus state. He told us that the Russian economy was on the verge of collapse, that the EU is full of brave, intelligent, wealthy, productive countries, and that they have the power, they have the ability to defeat Russia once and for all, and to break it up and to destroy Putin. And Trump came out and he gave this speech on Truth Social, and he spoke truth to us all. And now we have these people in Europe who are paid shills, 100% confirmed, who were elected because Russia rigged the election process. And I'm going to call for the annulment of every election of every official in this who is disagreeing with President Trump and his true statements about how the war in Ukraine is going. And we're going to start off with this jokester, Donald Tusk, ironically enough. And a lot of people think that he's like one of the biggest hardliners. He was in like all the Friends pictures, but it turns out he's actually a Russian bot. Because he doesn't look at this as Trump expressing his confidence of Trump stating the obvious thing that Donald Tusk and all his friends have been saying for the last couple of years. He's saying that this is Trump saying he's going to bail, that he's going to cut and run. Once again, like, Russia's on the verge of defeat. Why do they even need the U.S. at this point? I don't get it. Anyways, let's look at this article. European officials fear Donald Trump's latest rhetoric on Ukraine aims to set them on an impossible mission that will allow the U.S. president to shift blame away from Washington if Kiev falters in the war or runs short of cash. But I thought they're winning the war. So, like, why would this even be a concern? I mean, Ukraine's going to win the war. That's 100% confirmed. Russia's on the verge of collapse. Ukraine's got lots of money. Europe's got lots of money. We're going to seize the Russian frozen assets. We're going to put tariffs on Russia. We're going to seize, not freeze. We're going to reduce their economy into tatter. So why does it even matter? Trump will never be able to shift the blame. If anything, he's being very magnanimous because he's saying, look, guys, you've done so much for us in America and so much for Ukraine. We're going to repay you by letting you get all of the glory. When Putin falls, you guys in the EU can say we did this. And we did this on our own with minimal support from America, aside from the hundreds of billions of dollars. So I don't know what they're saying here. Maybe the Financial Times is some sort of like front for Russia Today. After months of pressing Ukraine to settle with Moscow and give up Russian-occupied territory, the U.S. president stunned European capitals on Tuesday by declaring on social media that Kiev could fight and win all its land with the help of the EU. I mean, he's just being supportive. Like, isn't that what they've said? They don't want him to walk away. They want him to support Ukraine. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, no peace with Russia. No compromises. We're going to get Crimea back, and we're going to go further than that. While Trump's new stance was welcomed in some quarters, several European officials concluded he was handing them responsibility for Ukraine's defense, by that I mean victory, with expectations that Europe could find hard to meet. Why would they find it hard to meet? Everything's going well. Russia's out of ammunition. They're using shovels. They're taking chips from washing machines. They have the giant lines of gas all over the place. Like, their country it's not even really worth mentioning anymore. So Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk on Thursday warned publicly that Trump's surprising optimism disguised a promise of reduced U.S. involvement and a shift of responsibility for ending the war in Europe. He added on X, better truth than illusions. Oh man, like we've got it. Donald Tusk is telling us that he wants the truth. He doesn't want illusions. He doesn't want people trying to gaslight the public or lie or misrepresent things. No, he's a man of principle. Trump also called on the EU to halt purchases of Russian oil and hit China and India with tariffs. Steps that Viktor Orban, a Trump ally, has said that he would block. So Trump, I think, had a very reasonable stance here. He's like, you know what? I agree. We need to sanction Russia. You're on the 19th sanction package. I'm going to do one better. I'm going to do a bigger sanction package. So what I'm going to need you guys to do is you have to stop buying Russian oil through third parties. Because it doesn't really make sense if we're constantly talking about destroying the Russian economy by blocking their oil exports, if you're actually buying their oil from a third party, so you're funding their war effort. Because you still buy Russian oil, so all you did was cut off the pipelines that brought it in at a cheap rate and replaced it with LNG and it being shipped from India at a much higher rate. So he's like, I think it's reasonable. He's just telling Europe, stop buying Russian oil. And he's like, look, I'm not going to sanction Russia and China without you. Europe is an economic dynamo. It is a juggernaut. And if Europe is still doing business with India and China, the U.S. looks like a rounding error, like if it decided to do it on its own. This is the start of a blame game, one official said of Trump's abrupt change of heart. The U.S. knew that China and India tariffs would be impossible for the EU to accept. Well, that guy's a Russian bot. He's saying it's impossible. I don't think anything is impossible. See, there's this scene in like the recent Avengers movie where Captain America is told it's impossible that you're going to defeat that bad guy from Russia. And he's like, no, I can defeat the guy from Russia. And then he defeated the guy for Russia. So with that as my guide, I think that anything is possible. So this guy is a Russian bot. Trump is building the off-ramp so he can blame Europe when and if he needs to. Well, why would... Once again, I like how... Breaking character for just a moment. Once again, like, I'm being sarcastic, but nothing I'm saying is really out of touch with what these guys have been saying for a really long time. They've been saying Russia's collapsing, it's a gas station, they're using shovels... and all this stuff, and basically everything that Trump said in the Truth Social post was their own rhetoric. Like, you could probably go back and find everything that he said from Donald Tusk's speeches, from any of these people who are now complaining and freaking out and saying that Trump's about to throw them under the bus. He just repeated the stuff that they said. And he's kind of called them on their nonsense, and they're just like, oh shit, what do we do now? He actually bought it. We didn't actually mean any of that stuff. We just wanted to keep this thing going so we would keep making money and we could float those sweet, sweet Euro bonds. So to be serious, if Ukraine is winning, as these people have maintained, if they're going to get all their territory back, if Russia's about to collapse, I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, why does it matter if Trump's making an off-ramp? What is he going to blame Europe for? He's just not going to get credit for the victory. Okay, let's go back into character. Carlo Massola, international affairs professor funded by Russia at Bundeswehr University Munich, said Trump wants to avoid that. After 9 months in power, this war has become his war too. And not just Biden's war. Well, I agree with that. One European official noted Trump's good luck to all sign off on his Truth Social as tantamount to a handover note. No, it's like, with Anglos, what the culture is when the kid turns 18, you just kick them out of the house and say you have to be a man now. You have to make something of yourself. And if not, that means that they have to live on the street and beg for money. Well, then that's just what they're going to have to do, and that's what Trump's doing. He's just saying, look, Europe, you need to go and fly. We're going to push you out of the nest. Uh, it's like what you've been saying, that it's this oppressive structure where the U.S. controls you, where the crazy religious far right psychos keep influencing your country. So we're gonna go away. Let's see here. Another European official said, everyone can see he is disengaging. After a bilateral meeting with Trump in New York on Tuesday, Emmanuel Macron, President of France, put a more positive gloss on the U.S. leader's statement, describing it as very correct. So it's hard to tell with Macron because he's not like stupid, but he's incredibly narcissistic and delusional. So it's quite possible he took this completely straight. If we back Ukraine completely in this situation, the Russian economy is suffering. So there is an opportunity for a good future. But EU leaders have concluded Trump is no longer a reliable ally, officials said. Well, like how you guys aren't reliable allies. You're saying Trump is you're the defeatism here. Since about 20 Russian drones flew into Poland's airspace this month, Tusk has sought more support from his country's NATO allies to respond to such incursions. Now, what Russia offered was to do a joint investigation where the both sides worked together to try to figure out what happened. To my understanding, I don't think Russia has denied that the drones were theirs. They have denied that it's deliberate. I mean, once again, you have thousands, tens of thousands of drones flying around. Is it possible there was a navigation error? Is it possible that, I don't know, the wind blew them off course? I don't really know. That seems plausible to me. And these were just scout drones, so I don't really get it. He said this week Warsaw was ready to shoot down flying objects without discussion when they violate our territory. So why didn't they do that? 100% certainty that allies will back his stance. When asked whether NATO countries should be prepared, why is NATO lowercase here? I don't know. That's something I see in some of these. Isn't NATO an acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization? Or is it just not an acronym now and it's just a proper noun? I always find that weird. I might just be behind the times. But yeah, so Trump is backing them. I don't see what they're complaining about. They're like, yeah, well, you can shoot these jets down. Go ahead, Poland. He believes in Poland, Donald Tusk. He's saying, I believe in the Polish army that they can shoot these jets down. Trump's tone on Ukraine war has shifted since he returned to the White House in January, having clashed with President Zelensky in the Oval Office in February. He has since softened his approach to Kiev. On Tuesday, he hailed the Ukrainian leader as a brave man. The U.S. president has also grown frustrated with his inability to end the war, and with Vladimir Putin telling the Russian president he must participate in peace talks or face consequences. I mean, once again, sorry, breaking character for a moment. The Russians, since before this had happened, this war started, have said that they're willing to have talks with no preconditions. And that position has never changed. What they mean when they say Russia won't negotiate is Russia won't unconditionally surrender. I think it's very important to keep that in mind, because actual negotiations at this point would mean they would have to give Russia at least some of what it wants. But they won't compromise on anything. Like, I doubt they'd even compromise on banning the Russian Orthodox Church, like something that minor and that petty. So it's easier to just say Russia won't negotiate when the actual, what that's code for is Russia won't unconditionally surrender. And then the cope I hear is, well, but Russia has a baseline of demands that it's not willing to compromise on. Well, isn't that like the oldest sales trick in the book? Like, I do personally think they won't, but isn't this like the art of the deal? Like, you go in, you highball, you say, I'm not going to move, and you do that as a way to get the other person to offer more? I don't know, but Trump has yet to impose any direct costs on Moscow, and has continued periodically to blame Zelensky for the conflict. Well, but he said he supported Zelensky. I don't know what this guy's saying. Since his Alaska summit with Putin, Trump has increased pressure on European countries to take responsibility for ending the conflict. Okay, this is beautiful. Ukraine's first deputy foreign minister told the Financial Times on Wednesday in Kiev that Trump's remarks on Ukraine were not a spontaneous emotional outburst. No, they were a troll. They were gaslighting you guys. They came from long, multi-layered discussions with Ukraine and Europe partners and U.S. officials over several weeks, said the deputy minister, who was in the Oval Office with Zelensky and Trump during their latest meeting. They came as a result of Trump being presented with fake intelligence, as well as advice from his top advisors, he added. The deputy minister took issue with the assertion by some European officials that the U.S. president was backing away from Ukraine and laying out impossible conditions for them. He said that Trump has made a strong point. The Europeans can and should do more, he said. Citing some EU members that purchase oil and gas from Russia. So Ukraine's on board. They've bought into Trump's gaslight. They're like, yeah, Trump, he's right, because they drank their own Kool-Aid. In recent weeks, the U.S. president has focused on Russian energy exports to Europe, though they have fallen steeply since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Hungary and Slovakia continue to import Russian oil, while France, Spain, Belgium, and Holland buy Russian liquefied natural gas. Trump said in his address to the UN General Assembly on Tuesday that he was willing to impose powerful tariffs that could stop the bloodshed in Ukraine, but only if countries in Europe were willing to impose the same measures. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia, Trump said. It's embarrassing. I mean, once again, is he wrong? Like, what part of what he said is factually inaccurate? They are doing that. He did not provide details on what these measures would be. But earlier this month, he called on the EU to impose tariffs of up to 100% on India and China, Russia's biggest energy customers, a request seen as a non-starter in Brussels because they aren't willing to stay as long as it takes. European officials struggled to believe Trump would follow through if they were to impose steep tariffs on Beijing and New Delhi, said Liana Fix, a Russian bot from the Council of Foreign Relations. They don't believe Trump would follow suit. He's not reliable. But he's been the most reliable. You guys are talking about blame. You're talking about it like this war is lost, like it can't be won. But our man, the literal Don, like the Chad Donald Trump, the virgin Donald Tusk, who doesn't believe that Ukraine can win this war. So, way to go, Donald. I think that you did exactly the right thing, and you've exposed these people. You've exposed these people for the degenerate losers that they are, who have no faith and no courage. So, I'd like to thank you once again. God bless you, Donald Trump. You're the man that we need now in this hour of doubt.